fit of garments is the number one thing. And this is what I built my consulting agency around from the very, very beginning, especially when you're talking about performance apparel, right? Like, I got to go play a game. I got to go for a run. I got to go be on the court. I got to go be on the pitch, whatever it is. What you want to be doing is thinking about your sport, right? You want to be thinking about your training plan. You want to be thinking about, am I doing well? Am I comfortable? Am I in the right zone with my heart rate? Am I hitting the interval that I need to be hitting? And not thinking about your clothes. If you're thinking about your clothes, if something's chafing, if something's like rubbing on you wrong, if something feels uncomfortable, we in the apparel space, we did something wrong.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of What's Next. I'm pretty fired up. As you can tell from my background, I'm finally back here in California. So we've had a couple of month delay. I am looking out the window of our studio here at the Pacific Ocean, which I couldn't be more fortunate. And along with me, I've got a guest who is in the apparel industry. And when I say in, not just, hey, I work with some suppliers, how do I plug you in? She has seen everything. And I'd say from our perspective, which is founder, owner, operator, from grind it out, this is a really cool idea, and holy shit, what am I getting myself into, to we might be tipping 40, 50, $60 million. So this is going to be a journey for us, for any of you who have dreamed about being here and being in this. I'd love to welcome in Rachel Erickson. Rachel, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for saying yes. That's such an awesome first step. And from our call that had nothing to do with the podcast before, I think we ended with, we should be on each other's podcast. So what a great place to start. Welcome in.
Yes, I love a wonderful podcast swap. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So as background for the audience, and you and I talked about this, mostly our group is athletes who are currently playing, looking to kind of go to their next thing, i.e. the what's next, or high performers in some business, corporate environment that are about to be entrepreneurs. And you've had experience taking companies from nothing, like I said, to 40, 50, 60 million. You've run your own company. You still do run your own company. You've got the business of apparel as a place to start. You and I talked about a place, the Apparel Founders Board, which is where if I'm just getting going, but I want to be in a peer group, I can be around them. You've kind of seen it all. And we're going to unpack that from, man, where do I start with a pattern to how do I source it and how do I get it? And oh my God, I actually have to sell this stuff. This is crazy. But with all of your experience, what have you seen? And I'm just going to jump right into this. What's the one thing that people think is easy about the apparel business that once they're in it, they're like, oh my goodness, it could not be further from that?
I believe wholeheartedly that fit of garments is the number one thing. And this is what I built my consulting agency around from the very, very beginning. I'm a fit technician. I'm a pattern engineer. I've been a technical designer, a product developer. So when it comes to fit on a garment, especially when you're talking about performance apparel, right? Like, I got to go play a game. I got to go for a run. I got to go be on the court. I got to go be on the pitch, whatever it is.
I got to go play golf.
Yes, I got to go play golf. Exactly. Yes.
Selfish plug for Galway Bay, for sure.
Yes. Galway Bay. Yes, 100%. And my dad is a big proponent of that too. He's always talking to me about his golf gear. But what you want to be doing is thinking about your sport, right? You want to be thinking about your training plan. You want to be thinking about, am I doing well? Am I comfortable? Am I in the right zone with my heart rate? Am I hitting the interval that I need to be hitting? And not thinking about your clothes. If you're thinking about your clothes, if something's chafing, if something's like rubbing on you wrong, if something feels uncomfortable, we in the apparel space, we did something wrong. So my biggest thing is fit. And I have found, as I've been talking to more and more founders and startup brand owners, that they don't consider that something important. And I just think that is one of the biggest mistakes that brands are out there making. Because if you make someone's favorite garment, it's so comfortable. I don't even think about it when I'm out doing my thing, even if that thing is just going grocery shopping. I'm not thinking about my apparel. It's my favorite pair of jeans, my favorite bra, my favorite swimsuit, whatever. They're going to come back to you over and over again and buy the next color or buy the next style you put out. If your clothes don't fit and they're uncomfortable, people are never going to come back. You're going to end up killing your own business. And I just think that's one thing that we talk to so many people about, and they're not owning their own fit. They're not considering fit. And it becomes such a huge mistake.
Well, this is an awesome place to start because as the audience knows, we're huge proponents of experience, not opinion. And what you just shared, you could see me sort of looking up into the right, because at Galway Bay, I would never suggest we've nailed it every time. And where we haven't, including sometimes in the early days, was it's got to look good. It's got to feel good, the actual texture, the fabric. And we spent, selfishly on my part, spent so much time about how beautiful it was that when we sold it in the market, if the first thing someone asks, which they have of us, is, oh, this is a European cut, or this is a generous America cut,
Yeah.
you already feel like you've missed the mark because you didn't clearly state where it was. And it's such a simple thing. It's sort of like a no shit statement, like work on the fit. But you're so right. And I know, based on your background, your attention to detail is amazing. And this is where I think it transcends. If you don't ever plan to be in the apparel business, you're going to get a lot out of this episode, because we're going to talk about how the details matter, and what a great place to start with fit. So if you are thinking about this, Mr. and Mrs. Athlete, and you really got an idea of, this has not been yet done in my sport when it comes to apparel, take Rachel's advice to think about fit, and think about all the things that already do probably fit that you love, insert brand name here. But when you think about your own, Rachel, I'm so glad you bring that up. So with fit, obviously every single one of us has a different body type,
Yes.
especially in a startup phase where you don't have the ability to do everything from 2X small to 4XL. When you're really trying to get your sweet spot, trying to get your MVP kicked off, you're just trying to do the basics right. How do you make sure that fit is like, we've checked that box, it's been done right, and we do that?
Yeah. You have to start with your target customer day in and day out. You have to know who you're making clothes for. I talk to so many apparel founders who come to me and say, I want to have a global brand. I want to make a product that everybody on this planet is going to love. And I always have to burst that bubble. I have to poke at it. Be like, I don't think that's going to be possible. We really need you to narrow in on one person. You want to be thinking of one person that you want to sell these clothes to. And then we're going to build your fit. We're going to build your body size chart. We're going to build your grade rule for your apparel. We're going to build all of that around that one person. And we're going to go seek out a fit model who is just like that one person, so that when they're wearing the clothes and we're going through fit sessions and they're performing in their sport, if that's something that they need to do, we're thinking about them and we're maximizing the fit capabilities for them.
Wow. Okay. So you really drill down to that specific. So with your permission, again, a little bit of a shameless plug here, but let's use Galway Bay. So we're in the outerwear business. We operate at the premium level in our brand, and I'm 58. So I consider myself probably close to our avatar. I might be a little bit older, but let's say someone in their 50s. I'm active. I care about my body. I take care of myself. I love playing golf at a competitive level. I do some travel to go play golf, and I also love wearing my gear when I travel. What am I missing in just that general, okay, we know generally about Bryan Finnerty as our avatar. What else am I missing that the audience should be thinking about that level of detail?
Especially when it comes to your apparel, how do you like to wear your apparel? I think is the other big question. Do you, if you are the target avatar, we've thought about the travel, we've thought about how much money you maybe make, we've thought about how we're going to market to you because you like these types of shows and these types of books, and this is your age and this is where you live. But let's also talk about, does Bryan like to wear his clothes tight? Does Bryan prefer to wear a loose fit garment and be really comfortable in it? Does he like to wear his entire outfit from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.? Does he not change throughout his whole day? All of those kinds of questions are also going to matter too, because now we have to get into the room and decide not what do we think should this garment look like or fit? Should it be tight? Should it be loose? Should it be somewhere in between? We're going to start asking that question in every single fit session. What does Bryan want? And so when we can do that and we can start having those types of conversations during fittings and during meetings and during reviews, that is going to make our apparel line incredibly consistent and incredibly just spot on with what your target customer wants.
Man, okay, I'm at a crossroads here because I'm just going to go on both paths. Bear with me. Clearly what you're already saying, founder brain is thinking, awesome, because now I can inform marketing with all the things that you are uncovering. Just the simple thing of, actually, I show up to work, I go from working out, I make my change, I do have, we call it outerwear you want to wear. It's going to be an inclement day. I'm going to take this stuff to the office because I know at 2, I'm dipping out to go play golf and I'm going straight through it. I think that's super important to know because if you're going to market to me, that's part of that language.
Yep.
I'll back up and go down this other path, which is your side of things, the COO route. Man, this sounds like it's going to take a lot of time, right? Multiple fittings, getting information back. If my supplier's not domiciled in the US, maybe they're somewhere APAC. Does it just take a lot of time or are there ways to minimize that?
It's a great question. I always give this answer and it infuriates everybody. It depends. It depends on who you have on your team. I will say that. If you have a team like ours, again, shameless plug over here for Unmarked Street, who has been doing this, and we have an entire array of people who are experts in their category, and you hire us to come in, we can typically get you through your entire fit phase in 3 or 4 rounds max. Where people usually call us, though, is where they have junior team members or they're trying to do it themselves or they're relying only on their factory to run fit. And they're at round 9, 10, 11 already, and they can't figure out how to get it right. And so it depends on who you have on your team who's focused on fit. Is it someone who knows how to talk to the factory properly so that when a prototype comes in, it's not quite right, maybe the first round? Are they using the right language? And do they know what to say so that the next round actually comes back significantly better? Or are we guessing? And we're just saying, I don't like this, but I don't know why. And it doesn't quite fit, but I don't know why. And I don't know what language to use. I don't know how to describe it. So it depends on who you have on your team. Typically, we'll say it will take about 9 months to 12 months to develop a collection of apparel when you're going through traditional, formal, technical design and product development rounds. However, we've been able to make it happen between 4 to 6 months because of the quickness that we're able to see, especially, like you said, if you're doing things domestically and the shipping is really fast.
I'm so glad you brought that up because literally it's my next question. I feel like I dove right into the weeds here and maybe zooming out for someone's like, I don't even know how long this takes. Like, I just thought because I order something on Amazon, it shows up at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. It does not work like that, folks. There is a ton of planning and I'm going to leave the business, most of the business aspect of this out. You can tune into several other episodes regarding business, timing, startup, seed, all of that. We're assuming here that you've got the money. Maybe you've even launched a product or 2 or Galway Bay, you might be 8 years into it. These conversations will be about somewhere in that range. So I'm so glad you bring up that you can shorten the time from 8 to 12 months to maybe 4 to 6. For a company like Galway Bay, who might say, we're working, and this is actual, like we're working really good with our factory. And we get like first run sample, production sample, and then salesman sample. And we get pretty darn close. I'm saying this because in all honesty, we only know what we know. So to be totally fair, if that takes us typically 5 months, do you think still, because from what I've heard from you, like just speaking the language, there's still ways to tighten that up just based on how we're getting that feedback loop tightened up?
There could be. I wouldn't do less than that, though, if I'm being honest. We've seen situations where a first proto might come in looking amazing, but we would always still want to get a production sample to check it and make sure that it is like fully signed off. We're seeing all the correct fabrics, all the correct trims, all the correct packaging. And then you still need sales samples too. So to me, that's a pretty swift and fast way to move through the process. And if you've got a factory that's giving that to you, I would say you're looking at the top of the list. That's the top of the pyramid.
Okay. And you and I talked about this in our last meeting, just when we were talking business to business. Again, setting the stage. If you're thinking about this, which is totally exciting, please don't take anything of my sort of challenge, or if I have a grimace, you're going to see a few of these when it comes to scar tissue I have with any business. You were really clear about this, that whatever we're thinking about, I'll use my past background as a professional soccer player, and I was a goalkeeper. And I realized, man, there's just no active wear off the pitch for goalkeepers. I see it for guys like Messi and Ronaldo and the like and Beckham, but man, I don't see anything for goalkeepers. Somebody's forgotten about us. And I have this idea. There are actual cycles that you want to be introducing your product into the market There probably are trade shows that you want to be thinking about this. There's also launch seasons that happen, including when does the English Premier League start or when does Major League Soccer start, et cetera. You talked very wisely about working backwards off of those dates instead of, oh, Bryan, that's a great idea. Let's see how long it takes. And then whenever you're done, we're just going to introduce this to the world. Talk a little bit about the difference of those two things, because I think that's critical for anybody who is seriously thinking about this, but doesn't know, like, how do I chart out this kind of next 6, 8, 10, 12 months?
You can do it that way, right? You can say, I don't have a timeline. When this is ready, it's ready. It'll go, which is great. And we work with some clients who are just like that. But so I come from the corporate fashion world where a lot of times we are tied to a wholesale strategy. So instead of just selling on our own websites, we are also selling into like specialty cycling shops, or if you're like a fashion brand, you might want to sell into a Macy's or a boutique or something like that. And when you're selling into any kind of structure that depends on someone else, you really need to rely on a key timeline that will adhere to their needs, right? So if you walk into a boutique today and you want to be able to sell into their shop for spring 2027, what you need to do is ask them, when are you going to be buying for spring 2027? And you need to then know that, okay, I need to be able to bring my garments in during that buying window and show to you what I hope to sell into this store and see if you'll place an order with me. Well, okay, now I've got those dates, right? Now I've got that end date. Now I'm going to back everything up. I know in order to do that, I have to have my salesman samples at least a day before, but I'd probably recommend a week or two before. I need to then make sure that I've approved my first proto sample by X date. Maybe that's 3 months before salesman samples are due to me. And so when you back things up that way, using like actual timelines that your factory needs to create your prototypes, actual timelines that you need to get through prototype reviews, actual timelines that you need to design and come up with everything, now you have this like kickoff date from the very, very beginning. And 9 times out of 10, when we do this exercise with our clients, we'll say, okay, here was our end date. We worked everything backwards based on what's realistic. And our kickoff date was like 6 months ago. So let's figure this out. But I will say it will give you a really clear picture of how to work more realistically the next time around. And sometimes it's hard news, but now you know better.
Okay, so this is so gold right here. I can apply this, as the audience knows, I've got a sports facility in Michigan, and we've also made a living of helping others open up sports facilities. If you're opening up a sports facility anywhere north of probably Oregon all the way across to New Jersey, we're up in Michigan, you're building for winter indoor activity. You definitely want to be opening up right after Labor Day, getting ready for winter. You don't want to open up the first day of spring, as you'd imagine. So exactly what you talked about. You could take out apparel here and insert product there. You could take product out and put your business service. And working backwards, folks, to the point of, oh, you should have started 6 months ago. Find a new start date. Do not try to truncate that season. It will cost you more money. You'll open up with far less of a bang than you ever expected. And the old adage, how you start your freshman year is typically how you're going to graduate college, GPA wise. Guess what? Business works the same way. That first year will set the tone for what everything is going to follow. There are plenty of ways to outwork the problems, but if you take the extra time to plan it properly, which might mean you have to punt until the next, in this case, buying season, but you do it right, you're going to preserve capital. You're going to do it correctly. So that is such sage advice. Thank you for, again, it's a statement of the obvious in some respects, but I think hearing it enough, we go, you know what? That's really sage advice, because I was thinking about trying to get all this done by August. And you go,
Yeah,
you can double pay everybody, but there's only so many mechanics under the hood, and it's not going to work. Right.
yeah, that's
So,
exactly right. I remember one of my first clients, she was making puffy coats, like winter down coats. And she was just off on her timing and she hadn't planned it out right. So she hired me to come in and help fix it. And it was just a little bit too late. And she ended up receiving all of those puffy coats in June. It was just too hot. And that inventory just sat on her books. And it was just such a time suck and a money suck. And it was just really hard. And so when I look at like situations like that, I'm like, let's not do that. Let's figure out how to map this out better so that you can get your inventory at the right time.
there's so much depth to that. It's follow the simple principle, work backwards, right? Keep the end in mind. We talk about that a lot in the show. We know that as athletes, right? When you start every preseason, before you even start your preseason, you've looked at the schedule of who you're going to play, you all those details. You can take that skill set and apply it here 100% every day, all day. Okay, so we got the idea fit. I'm working backwards in my schedule on that timeline schedule. That all makes sense to me. This is good. I'm still interested in doing this. I may not be Mark Wahlberg coming in with municipal, but I'm ready to go. What have you seen from your experience where, as I don't know specific to athletes, but I'm going to start there. You may have a range of people. Where do most of them fail once they've gotten into that first part? So even if they've hit their right, they didn't try to squeeze it in, they remembered fit, they didn't goof it up. Where do most of them fail on a macro perspective that even 2, 3 years, 4 years down the road or longer, it's just, guys, we got to pull the plug. This isn't working.
Yeah. So 2 things go together for me. Number 1 is thinking that you need to launch with this huge collection and thinking I need to have everything mapped out. I need to have all the outfits. I need to have this full website right off the bat. Number 1, that is actually the opposite of what I really recommend to all of my clients all the time, because you never know until you really launch something what your customers are going to think about it. Even if you're doing surveys and even if you're doing pre-sale and even if you think you've got all the feedback, even if you're an athlete yourself, you're making something that you know is missing from the market. The way that you're going to sell it, the way that you're going to market it, the way that you're going to get it out into the world, you still don't know if the thing that you're creating is exactly the thing that your client wants. And so making all of it right up front without starting to get that customer feedback when you do start to make sales and do start to get product out into the world tends to be a really big issue, because the other thing is that we really encourage people to budget first before they design. And this is not something that a lot of people are encouraging. Like when we're out looking at our competitors out there, all the other fashion mentors and the fashion gurus on YouTube and on Instagram, they're all saying jump straight into design and think about the creative piece of it. And I am here to tell you that if you design and try to develop a line that you can't afford to produce, you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to have wasted all of your time and all of your money developing something that you now can't move forward with. Or number 2, you're going to get yourself into what I love to call like the debt spiral. Like you have this money up front, you brought in this inventory, you spent so much money on all of this collection that you didn't need to design or make, and you can't sell it because you didn't get the right amount of information from your customer base. And now you have to go get more loans. You have to get more investors. You have to figure out how to find more money. And then you drop more money into it. And this is how we start to see, the stat I think is 82% of startup apparel brands fail within their first 3 years. And that's the cycle that we see. That's why it's cash flow.
The learning here is if you've raised capital or you've been fortunate to retire from your thing or move from your job with a nice nest egg, and you're thinking, I really never had to balance the checkbook anyway. And the design feels so sexy. And I think that's why it gets so much attention on social media. Jump right into that. It's going to tap into your creative juices. It's the thing that you thought was missing from the market.
Yep.
It's easy. When it seems easy, especially in the apparel business, stop for a second and catch your breath. Because when it's easy, you should be thinking, I need some advice here. Go see Rachel. She'll at least be the voice of reason. No, actually, you just stumbled upon something that actually for you is easy. Perfect. But I love it that you're saying do the budget, because without it, you're going to get really stuck here. And again, I don't care what your net worth is. At the end of the day, this apparel brand is a life of its own. And if the only way it exists is because you're funding it, you've just started a hobby, by the way. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it won't be a company. It'll be a hobby. So you're going to start it right. Limit your SKU set, right? We call it SKU set, the number of items. At Galway Bay, we were very lucky because we didn't have a ton of money. Our hero products, 2 of them, were a beautiful pair of pants that you wore a belt through. They look like any awesome pair of chinos. They just happen to be waterproof. And our jacket, you could play 36 holes of golf, look great, and walk into a clubhouse.
Yeah.
We kind of lucked into that. It wasn't like, man, we got 80 ideas. Let's just sell them down to 2. Those are just the 2 that we could do. And to your point, our audience, our customers started saying, hey, we would love a quarter zip that fits just under the collar of that. Well, because all the rest of them stick up and they wick water in. It'd be really nice if you guys made a packable pair of pants that in case I got stuck in the rain on the 8th hole, I could put them on.
Yep.
So your point is so spot on. So the 2 points here, limit your starting point. You can always expand. And by
Yes.
the way, it'll be easier to sell through and create a budget. And I think those are in parallel, right? I don't think you're saying do one than the other. It's like, these are 1A, 1A. Just make sure you do
Yeah.
the budget and limit your SKU set.
Doing your budget will help you understand what those key first products are. Right? Like we actually just hosted a workshop last week where we were walking people through our line planning template, where we walk them through how to do all of the budgeting, how to do all of the numbers. And the number one question that I love to ask after I show everybody how to do all the work and plug in all of their information, okay, look at this one cell now. This is how much money you're going to owe to your factory if you're going to develop and design and produce all of this stuff. Can you afford to do that? Do you have that money? And I don't think I've ever had anybody look at me and say, yes, I have that much money. So that's what you need to know. And then when you see that number and realize you need it to be lower, that's where you then start to whittle down the product line and come up with your 1, 2, or 3 minimum viable products to start with. So they go completely hand in hand.
That's awesome. So now we're to the product, which is awesome. So when you think about this, which will be totally tapping into your area of expertise, what are some of the elements when you take, okay, Bryan had this awesome idea for X, and now we really need to get it into the fit and function part of where we're going. So we've covered the does it fit, but how do we really then transition into this is something that's going to, at the end of the day, make sense for in my activewear category, it really does perform.
Yeah. I believe in a hugely robust wear testing process when you go through your development. So every time you get a prototype in, right after you're done fitting it, you go through the formal fitting, you check all the boxes, get it out to as many people as you possibly can so that they can perform their sport in it. Like I worked in cycling for a lot of years. I worked at Specialized and I worked at Pearl Zumi, and I've worked with some other cycling companies since starting my own consulting company. And one thing that I always bring up that very few people do, but I always make sure we do it as soon as they start working with me, is when we're in the fit room, we fit everything, not just standing there, but also on a bicycle. Like I make them bring a bicycle into the room so that when you're in the ride position, there's a huge difference in how it feels and looks compared to how it feels and looks when you're standing there. And then the bonus after that is now, okay, give it to a bunch of riders, give it to some cyclists, have them wear it, have them let us know what's working, what's not working, what's uncomfortable, so that they can give that feedback to us. And as we get to the next round, now we make sure that's fixed. And if it's not, we can address it. I think putting it out into the world and getting it tested is the best way to get an impeccable product in your line.
I might be making a statement of the obvious, or maybe there is an overlap here because I've done it both ways. There's lots of scar tissue here. We get in 15 samples of XYZ new product. As would be imagined, everybody is my best friend, especially if they're a golfer. And I would love to be your testing agent, which are typically most of my buddies. And so what do? I ship them all out to those guys, or I hand them all out. I get feedback from all of them that are like, this is amazing. Bryan, you're a genius. You've developed it again. This is awesome. I'm saying that jokingly because I don't really feel like I get any critical feedback.
Yeah.
Conversely, we've taken it out to some tour events and we've taken it some places where guys don't give a rip who we are, who in the first 30 seconds are like, you're going to try to sell this? It's okay. Tell me more, right? Which is great. So when someone gets to that point, they're like, okay, I'm ready to put these into the real user base. How do you avoid giving it to your friends and family so that you don't just get the attaboys of, hey, great job. You've made it to the next step and this stuff is awesome.
If you want to give it to your friends and family, because that's who's really interested in it, you have to put a robust process behind it. For example, my husband is the number one wear tester. I use him for everything. I make him try on everything. But he knows I'm looking for critical feedback. He knows what kind of answers to give me. And I had to start that process with him by giving him very pointed questions and almost giving him like a survey to fill out every single time I gave him a garment to wear. What do you think of the fabric? Is there anywhere that feels itchy? Is there any part of the fabric that isn't soft? Is there any part of the fit that's riding up on you in a certain place? And so if you're looking for certain things, often we'll say we don't want to lead the witness, right? Like we don't want them to give us feedback that's not necessary. But if it's someone like a friend or a family member, and they're just going to typically pat you on the back, you can get over that hurdle by giving them a questionnaire and a survey and telling them, I need this pointed information. But we do really like to recruit people who are going to be really upfront and honest. And a lot of times we'll go searching for them. We'll put out some sort of another online survey. Like, do you want to be a wear tester for brands X, Y, and Z? And if so, fill out this information or this application. And if we think you're going to be a good fit for it, great, we'll get back to you. When I was at Pearl Zumi, we had a full-time on-staff person who ran our wear testing program, and he would go recruit these people. And they actually got paid to do wear testing for us. Our wear testers did, but it was a rigorous, regimented program where they had to wear that garment a certain amount of times, wash that garment a certain amount of times. They had to wash it a certain way. They had to turn in their surveys every single week, and they had to be giving good feedback. Wear testing can go from so many different places, but what you really want to do is just make sure that whoever you're giving garments to is willing and open to giving you very critical feedback, regardless of who they are.
This information, amongst a lot of others, including being surrounded by peers in the space with Rachel's at the apparel board, so apparel founders board that you run. I'm saying that because there's so many good nuggets into all the questions you listed. None of them are yes, no. It was targeting a specific place, but you didn't say, is there anything uncomfortable under the arm? To your point, I'm not leading the witness, but I'm not letting you say yes, no, yes. You're really encouraging good specific feedback. And we'd want that, I think, anywhere. I love that. Yeah, if you're gonna incorporate some friends and family, which is fine, just give them some criteria to at least give you the feedback that's candid, that's going to help you build the next iteration of that one that hopefully will sell in the market.
Yeah, I love to tell them, like, I can't fix it if I don't know it's wrong, right? So you telling me that everything is great isn't actually helping me. And usually that will encourage them to give some good feedback too.
I'm going to fast forward just a little bit here because we're moving through the life cycle, which is great. Not that every company is built to sell, but we do know this, that in the spirit of, I love owning companies that I don't have to sell, that I love to work at, right? Because then if someone comes and makes me an offer that's too good to be, not too good to be true, but more than I was expecting, I might be interested.
Yeah.
But until that happens, I love what I'm doing. I'm working in my unique ability. I've got the right people on the team. But most importantly, and I'm tapping into a word you just used, which is operations, systems, whatever it might be. In the apparel industry, what are those operations at a macro level? What do they look like? Just, you've seen it COO fractionally and internally, working with CEOs and founders as an underpinning to kind of those operations levels. We talk about operations, clean operations equals competitive advantage. We talk about that a lot. What do you see in the apparel industry? Are there any unique things, or is it pretty much like this is the way it goes where the best are the best?
Yeah, I think the best of the best follow a pretty typical like biannual seasonal process. And we have a typical series of meetings, and we know who's coming to those meetings and what the outcomes need to be and who are the decision makers in those meetings. We're trying to help our founders who are inside the Apparel Founders Board really get clear on what all of those meetings look like, how often you have them, who to include, how to write those SOPs so that it doesn't have to be hard. Like, we're making clothes at the end of the day. It's a very joyful, it's a very creative space to be in. And I think a lot of brands really get sucked into how difficult it can be and how regimented a lot of the rest of the industry is. But if you apply some of these standard operating procedures that some of the biggest brands in the world are using, and you set up a schedule and you have a process and your calendar works and your timeline is built properly, and you know what you're supposed to do today based on all of those SOPs that you've now built, and you do that and you check the box, you did your thing today, and it starts to feel easy. It doesn't ever feel boring, I don't think, but it does start to feel a little bit easier. You get a little more time back into your schedule as a CEO. You have more time to be the visionary of your brand. You have more time to spend on managing and mentoring your team or hiring more team. And so we really encourage that you understand how the biggest brands work so that you can make choices on how to distill that down into a smaller scale. And that's one of the big things that we're teaching, because that's where I spent so much of my career, was building timelines and calendars and process for big companies like Specialized.
Yeah, it does really transcend size. So I appreciate you bringing that up. If you're just getting started, And for a lot of our guys, they're in a second part of a career, and the startup phase can feel daunting of, I think I should just go and I'll learn how to change the tires on the bus at 70 miles an hour. What I would tell you, and I think what Rachel's saying across scale, is it's never too early to build those timelines. You heard it, this whole podcast. And I would say we talk a lot about EOS. I've used it in all of our businesses for 25 years. I have no vested interest in EOS, so I get nothing from recommending them. And there are plenty of other systems like Pinnacle and insert others here. But whatever you pick as your system of operations and you make the SOPs fall in line with that, everything from your accountability chart to your launch calendar to your budgeting down to your people and how they operate. That sounds complex, and that's exactly what Rachel's saying, but you're going to get time back because all those things then just happen, like the hands on a clock keep moving because of all the little pieces that are swirling inside. It just moves. And you get this time back so that you can be creative, right? You can think about the next. You can expand from your 2 hero products like we did 8 years ago, having a full lineup, which is like amazing today. So we got op system. We're not going to talk about exit strategy because I think that's a whole nother thing. I've got 2 maybe short ones. One is if you look at a company like Galway Bay, we're 8 years in, I would say we're hitting a new stride, which has been fun. We found another gear. But for you as on looking on the outside, and you haven't seen much of our company, if any, what do you look for and you go, that company I think could really scale? Versus you look in there and you go, they're probably pretty good where they're at, but I think that's just going to be what they're going to be.
I think scalability comes down to focus. Like the Galway Bay product line is very clear, right? We know who it's for. We know what it's for. We know what we're selling. We sometimes see brands who are making product and it doesn't make any sense. There's no focus. There's no clear direction that they're moving in. Today it seemed cool to design a dress, even though I don't sell dresses and my customer doesn't want dresses. And so those are the types of brands that we'll look at, and we really need to do a lot of work with them to get them to refocus and really hone in on who they're selling to.
We call it the North Star, right? Do we really know where we're going? And my chuckle there along the way is, and I love the creativeness of our team, so I don't want to be disparaging towards that because I don't do much, if any, of that side of the work. But we have come up with a few products that had a lot of excitement internally, and yet were way outside of our, not only skill set, but market, right? So thankfully we're like, it really is something completely different. And we stayed close to our knitting, which was good. And I think you really tipped into my second question was, at the end of the day, even if I'm in just dream stage, how do I think about building a company that lasts? And I'm asking the question because at Galway Bay, we ask that question a lot. We think we are meaningful. We have impact on mother-daughter and father-son golf trips that are bucket list trips to Ireland, where it might be dad's last trip or last time before we start full-time jobs. And so we have a meaningful piece in this, but as a company, how do you build something that lasts in the apparel business from like the company perspective?
I love that question. To me, it all comes down to your margins. It's all about profitability, because if you want to expand and be able to do the next cool, great, amazing thing with your company, you have to have money in the bank to do it. And revenue is not the same as profitability, right? Like we've worked with companies before who are at $45 million gross revenue. From the outside, they look like they are killing it, and they're spending $47 million. So they're actually losing $2 million every single year. It is all about profitability to me, which is why if you ever listen to me talking about anything, I am constantly harping on margins, because if you're not selling your product at the right margin percentage, you're never going to have a company that will last.
Wow. A few episodes ago, we talked a lot about Young Life, and I'm going to draw a parallel here because as a nonprofit, not in the apparel space, had nothing to do with what you and I are talking about. However, how do you build the next 75 years for Young Life? You treat it like a for-profit business. You look at margins, and when you have enough left over, you do more. And so I love the fact that is just universal, right? It's a universal truth. I was hoping you would say that because I just love the fact that without those financial resources, the rest does not happen. Yet I think the temptation is, how do you build something that lasts? You have the sexiest thing on the shelf is the easy answer. That's what social media would scream to us, right? So folks, this has been an awesome truth telling and listening show. And clearly we have only scratched the surface. At Unmarked Street, Rachel is such an amazing resource. If you even have questions, Rachel, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. If you have questions about, should I even be thinking about this? Or I already did think about it. I put my first foot in. Holy shit, what did I do? I just know from your like great human aspect, reach out to Rachel and I guarantee you she can at least point you in the right direction. And the first thing won't be, here's my list of consulting services. That
No.
won't be it at all. It'll be something, again, you're not around this industry for 20 plus years by not being really great in the business. And so reach out to her. And on that note, Rachel, for everybody who might be driving or somewhere on a long walk, how do they find, it'll be in the show notes clearly, but how do they find you?
Yeah. So we are Business of Apparel on all of the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, you name it. We are at thebusinessofapparel.com if you want to check us out there. Or if you are looking for done for you consulting services like bringing experts in, we are at unmarkedstreet.com.
And when you check out the stuff on social, including you got it, how Rachel and I met was I was just watching her podcast. We never even met before.
Yeah.
Someone in the golf industry. And it was so awesomely like invigorating. I was like, oh man, I'm even more excited about being in our space. If you have any itch to be in the apparel industry, watch the show as well. There are plenty of episodes that you can go check out. It really does give you a very unfiltered view of what it's like. This isn't a raw, come join us regardless of the carnage. She opened up with 82, 83%, I think you said, are not going to make it. Kind of scary that you've found an industry that's worse than the restaurant business. Didn't think there was one. However, my guess is those odds tilt dramatically in the other direction when you solicit the help of people who have been there and done that and surround yourself with peers like the Founders Board, the Apparel Founders Board, people that just, they're going through it with you because iron sharpens iron. I know that from being out here in San Diego with the San Diego Sports Innovators. We're just locked in with a ton of people who are all fighting the same fight. And it's really cool. Rachel, thank you so much. I'm going to put you on the spot. Will you please come back on the show?
Yeah, I would love to.
As typically happens, I'm taking notes and I just realized I have actually more notes than a second show will even have. So at the risk of tying you up right now for another show, let's just do another show. Thank you. Folks, as always, if this has been helpful for you, or if you know somebody who's thinking about the apparel business, please share this with them. Like our goal is to help those become great. We're not monetizing the show. It's strictly to be sort of mentorship, helpful as you're on your journey of what's next. It's got an exclamation point for a reason. It's not a question. It's like, what's next? It should be exciting and where you're going. And if apparel is part of this, please reach out to Rachel. She is amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. As always, if you like us, hit the like button, subscribe, and pass it to a friend. Thanks, guys. That's Pod.